Welcome to Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. Ron Kramer is a musician, composer, and author. He has worked with some of the best musicians, and there are some chatter regarding making his debut book into a motion picture. I hope you enjoy our chat with Ron Kramer here on Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. That was a little bit of a surprise. Instead of our normal intro, we had one of your songs. Tell me about it.
Yes, thank you. That was a song called Dance of the Hummingbirds. It's a musical piece that I've written not too long ago, and it will be used for an upcoming project that's going to be around the corner.
Yeah. Well, you began as a musician. We're going to start off with that. Because, So how old were you when you first started? Would you pick up a guitar and were you self-taught?
I was 11 years old. And I wanted to drive my family crazy, and I picked up the drumsticks and became a drummer.
Ah.
Yeah. And from then on, 11 years, growing into my teens, I had an older brother that played guitar, and he had already the garage band thing going on. And I was always that little bratty little brother trying to sneak in and play the drums in between breaks. Asking the I remember, one of the people, actually the drummer for my brother's band. He's a local guy, Connecticut guy. I'll throw his name out there if it's okay. It's Ken Siedenberg. I remember going over to him, and when they would be taking their breaks, Kenny was kind enough to always let me go out there and sit on his drums and start banging away. But then moving on from there, I got together with my own group of friends my age, and just started doing the garage band thing myself, actually, and did that for many years, all through junior high school, and then out of high school, things took off for me.
Now, were you self-taught?
Yes, for the most part, self-taught. I did, I did study with some teachers out there. I studied some jazz, and then I studied privately with a few other people on the side. But for the most part, learning how to play the drums and everything going along with composing music and everything, I'm all self-taught.
Yeah, who was your biggest influence or influences?
Oh, geez, as a 10-year-old kid, Kiss. Well, I mean, my first rock and roll pop star that I got into when I was younger, I remember sitting home prior to going to kindergarten. What was I, 4, going on 5? And I was a big Elton John fan. It was always played. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was an album, the big gatefold, vinyl albums that we had years ago. I wish we had those things again still. Those
They're
are
coming
awesome.
back.
Yeah, they are, yeah. But yeah, Elton John was probably one of my first pop artists that I really got into and connected with. And eventually I merged into, okay, let's get a little heavier here. And couple friends of mine at school introduced me into the band Kiss. And, that was superheroes playing music, basically. And at that age, that's phenomenal. That's like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
So your favorite genre is more of the hair metal?
Well, that's sort of what I said, I kind of eventually went into. I always liked pop, but yeah, hard rock, heavy metal was, for most of my life, was my music and what I enjoyed listening to and playing for many years. But if you asked me now what I listen to, you'd probably laugh. But no, I'm more, nowadays, I like listening to, classical music, mainly stuff that I write. I just so in love with where I am at in life as a composer. I did the whole writing pop songs, writing hard rock songs. But, some of the obscure bands that I like from back in the day that aren't heavy metal are bands I've named like Jellyfish. Toto is a phenomenal band that I always knew about, but just recently kind of got into them and started digging deep into their catalog.
They have a lot of great songs.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody knows the song Africa.
Yeah.
Toto, so that's a great song. For me, I think two of my favorite drummers are Neil Peart from Rush, Buddy Rich, obviously, the jazz scene, and Carmine Appice, who's been in everything from Vanilla Fudge, Rod Stewart. So you said you're a composer as well. Did you self-taught? Are you self-taught with the piano, or did you take lessons with that as well?
Absolutely. Actually, no lessons with the piano. I'm
Wow.
not classically trained. I always kind of throw that out there to people because I'm not. My whole thing is I'm a storyteller. I love writing and composing music. It's not about me being up on stage anymore, being a performer. I do have a lot of people, a lot of fans, and people out there in the past. Hey, Ron, when are you going to go back out and perform? You should be doing this. And I'm like, it's not my, it's not my thing anymore. I like being behind the scenes, and that's where my creative juices have really taken off. And very happy in the place that I'm at right now.
Well, that's good to hear. But back in the day, you were in a band named Shanghai, and they made it pretty much. They were towards the top. Did you ever have a record deal with them, or you came close?
No, we did. We did actually. I was in my early 20s, and we did score a record deal with Taichiko Records out of Japan, and they were very good to us. And but we had a game plan, a game or a business plan. We were we were about 19 years old at the time, 18 going on 19, and I finally found two other guys, Tony Childs. I'm mixing his stage name with his real name. Tony Childs and Jody Reese were my partners in crime back then. But when I hooked up with them after reading an ad in the paper looking for a drummer, I knew I found the right guys because the first thing we all sat together in Pipeline Studios, which was a studio that they built, was we put together a business plan, band dues. We eventually got into the situation where for 2 years all we did was write music. And we said, listen, we can go out there, be the local heroes and do the whole live thing, but we wanted the record deal, and that was going to move us forward. And we said, you're not going to get a record deal unless you have great songs. So, that's where we honed our craft in songwriting, was in the studio. We all invested in studio equipment because we knew that then the clock wasn't ticking. We didn't have to worry about studio hours, how much it was going to cost. So we had that luxury once, our band dues came to fruition and we were able to buy, the Fostac 8-track recorder, the mixing boards, everything that went with it. We would get together daily and spend hours every evening. We all had day jobs during the day when we would get together evenings and weekends and even Sundays. And that's what we did for about 2 years. And it did get to a point where we finally wanted to play out so people can see who we really were. And eventually that did happen.
What I like about that is that you brought up a great point. Back then, you actually had to write great songs and have talent. Instead of now, it's about how many Instagram followers you have. Oh, they have 1 million Instagram followers, but they have great songs. You know what? They have a bigger following. Let's sign them first, which I think is a shame because there's so many great musicians that are falling to the wayside just because they're not popular on social media.
Yeah, there's no more investing in the artist like it was many years ago. You got a 2, 3, 4 album deal. If you were picked up by somebody, there was always the option for them to drop you. But if they get one good album out of you, you're lucky if you get a sophomore album from them. But yeah, it's you really need to hone your craft and work with good talent. And you're right, there's a lot of great talent out there that's not being heard. But the flip side of that is you do have a lot of folks that say, well, you got all the exposure. You can self-promote yourself. You can go out there and do this. My problem that I see out there is it's a market that's very swamped with so many things. And this goes for authors with books and musicians and everything. The internet is flooded with so many artists, and there's a lot of talented artists that genuinely they should be on there. They should be out there. But you need to do something. You need to do something to make yourself stand out from the others. And what I always preach is do the best high quality type of work that you can, and that will rise to the top.
Definitely, work ethic will always pay off in the end.
Mm-hmm.
We're speaking with Ron Kramer. We'll be back right after this. welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter, the Claus Chatter edition. I'm speaking with musician, composer, and author Ron Kramer. Ron, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So we were talking about Shanghai, your band, and you had a record deal with them. I just want to talk about one more thing with that, because you had some interest with some major musicians back in the 80s, and you had a singer from a band, and he wanted to be the singer. Tell me about that.
Oh, gee, yeah. We actually, Steve Plunkett of Autograph actually was very interested. He was connected and had some ties with our management, which was out in Hollywood. And there was a time we had some troubles going on in the Shanghai camp, and we were looking for another vocalist. Don't get me wrong, our vocalist from Shanghai, Jade, is a one of a kind. He's phenomenal. He's got such great talent. But personalities and egos get in the way, and we were looking to just go sort of in a different direction. And we thought, that there was going to be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if we went somewhere else. But yeah, Steve Plunkett was somebody that was very interested. He actually was connected to our management, Judith Randall, because Judith was instrumental in getting a lot of our music that we did back in the Shanghai days into a lot of film and TV shows and motion pictures. Music placement was something she did. She came from a Hollywood family. Steve Plunkett was one of the gentlemen. He was already, if people know, he's not with Autograph anymore. But
I want to let people know, Autograph had that hit single, "Turn Up the Radio."
Turn Up the Radio.
People are going to remember that one. That was an '80s staple.
It was, and you still hear it to this day. And the band is great. Actually, one of my colleagues, Jimmy Bell, he's playing guitar now for him, which is phenomenal. And but yeah, the whole. We had some other people there. We were in talks with Kelly Hansen, who now currently sings for Foreigner.
Wow!
And those were some difficult things to go through. We didn't land him at the time for reasons I'm not going to get into.
Yeah. He was formerly in a band named Hurricane, I think.
Hurricane, yeah.
That was one of my favorite '80s unknown bands.
Mm-hmm.
They were great. So you definitely flirted with success. Well, actually, you had success. You flirted with.
I've worked with a lot of different people. Everybody from Bobby Blotzer, from Rat. And John Corabi, and that was a singer for Motley Crue there. Mm-hmm. We were in the studio with them, helping them out when they were here in Connecticut, actually, recording the 24/7 project. And Mike Matijevic from Steelheart, was very close with him back then. Haven't spoke to him in a while, but we were actually, doing some writing and cutting some stuff with him back in the day. And he's a Connecticut guy, all our local Connecticut guys. And obviously James Christian from House of Lords was our producer. And, working with him and Jeff Kanata at Oxford Circus Studios in Hamden, Connecticut, that's where the magic, that's where we created the magic and had great people. Here, people don't realize Connecticut has a plethora of great musicians. Everybody, from Michael Bolton, Meatloaf, and you just keep going down. But I just know so many people, and it spans back at least, 30 years that I know of. So Carpenters are actually from New Haven, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Karen Carpenter and her brother. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they had some great songs. A lot of people like to make fun of it, but I think deep down...
I love the Carpenters.
Yeah, no, they have a lot of great
songs. Songwriting, great melody. I'm all about melody.
Exactly.
Yep.
Which brings me up to my next point. You are also a composer, which we spoke about, and that led to writing your debut children's book called The Music Box. What inspired you to write that story?
Oh, that's interesting. All my life I've, even back in school, I was never really great in, English wasn't my favorite, course of study. So, being an author was something I never even thought about. It's something that just came to be. I was experimenting on the piano when I started first working on the piano more, and one of the first songs that I wrote on the piano was a song called Music Box, and I wrote it for my daughter. My daughter was 13 at the time, and the song's lyrics basically reflect her being a shy 13-year-old teenager. And moving on, I said for ha-has, I would love being a creative guy. Let me make a music video. So I hired some local film people out of the Full Sail school over there in Orlando, and put a bunch of things together and did a music video, and the whole process of, okay, you're doing a music video, you have to write a storyboard. If you're going to do a music video, what is it going to be about? What are you going to see? That's where the birth of Music Box kind of started there, because I started coming up with ideas and different things that I wanted to do in the video. So yeah, the storyboard, for me, that process was, I really liked it. I thought it was great. Once the music video was completed, came out wonderful. I was working at the time also as a musical director for a ballet school, which was down in the Vero Beach area where I was living. And I became very involved with the ballet school there, with the students. And, trying to be involved and being helpful with the students and the faculty there, I said, you know what, I'm going to write my version of like a Nutcracker. I want to do something. Let me do something based on this Music Box idea that I have. So, over the course of 2 years, I composed close to 20 musical pieces. And they were all pieces that eventually were part of the story or the libretto for the ballet. And we never fully launched the full production of the ballet, but we did a few segments from it. And then once that was completed, I said, I do have the idea for a great story here that's timeless. And, I want to capture it and record it in book form. I said, you know what, let me do an illustrated book. Illustrated book would be something I can hire an illustrator and I can do some small little captions, about 15 or 20 pages long tops. Started working on it, and within probably a couple days, I said, this is too simple. There's more to this story. I'm getting some ideas started flooding into me. So I sat down and I just started sketching stuff, not even on my laptop. I started handwriting out chapter by chapter the Music Box story.
Now, what's the premise of the story?
It's a love story. It's a European-based fairy tale. It's a father-daughter relationship story, good against evil, kind of like most classic fairy tales.
It sounds like fun. Have you ever been approached by Hollywood to make this into a movie?
I have actually. It's been probably about a year and a half now last time I spoke recently to a film producer out of the UK that was very interested. We had some talks, unfortunately, for some legal matters that I had going on in the background. Talks had to be closed down, but I'm now, back in the camp of talking to multiple people at the moment, and filmmakers. So Music Box will be brought to life on the silver screen here at some point. It will happen. I'll make sure it happens.
All right. I like that attitude, that persistence. Are you ever considering turning this into a series, Music Box?
Yes, I do actually have a second story that's just about completed. It is a sequel to the first book, Music Box, and for any fans that have, or people that have heard the first book, or read the first book, I should say, they're going to love the second one. The second one is a huge expansion on the first one. Obviously, my writing has gotten even better. Just doing something and doing it consistently, you do grow, you get better. And for someone that never studied how to write and wasn't a huge English fan in school, I tell everyone out there, just follow your heart, your inspiration. If you're somebody that's an artist and you have inspiration, do it. Take it, grab it, and go with it.
Exactly. I have that same mentality. We're speaking with musician, composer, and author Ron Kramer. We'll be right back after this on Nutmeg Chatter, the Claus Chatter edition. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter, the Claus Chatter edition. We're speaking with musician, composer, and author Ron Kramer. Ron, welcome back to the show.
Hi, what's going on?
All right, so we were just talking about before the break you turning the book Music Box into a series, and you said you were approached by Hollywood. Would you ever consider selling the story and characters, or would you want 100% total control of the rights?
Well, for the right amount of money, I mean, I'll sell it to anybody, but basically, no. I'm too close to it. I look at it as like George Lucas. I want to own everything. It's those are my babies. It's my family. And what makes it feel like family, literally, is not all, but most of the character names used in the Music Box book and the upcoming book are people, from my family. My mother, Elfrida, she, her name is used for the protagonist for the first story. So yeah, all my aunts and uncles and my grandparents, a lot of their names, not all of them, but some of them were used in the book. So it hits very close to home.
Well, I can tell you two stories. You mentioned George Lucas. He was a pioneer back in '77.
Absolutely.
Because he was one of the first directors to say, you know what? I don't want.
He wanted to do it his way.
Yeah, he said, I want part of the film, and I also want part of the merchandise. And people are saying, merchandise? Are you crazy? Just take part of the movie. So then look how well that turned out for him. Also, another one would be Sylvester Stallone with Rocky. They did not want him. He wrote the script, and they said, we do not want you for the movie. We want somebody else. I think they were thinking Henry Winkler because he was the Fonz back then. They wanted somebody with a big name. And he goes, nope, this is my movie. I'm keeping it. And then he ended up winning an Oscar for that. So sometimes when it may not seem like the right thing to do is like, I'm going to keep the rights. I'm going to stay true to my story, stay true to myself. It works out for you.
Yeah, obviously, if it's going to be from a small independent film company of something like that, or I'll find the financing somewhere and I'll produce it myself, and it will, because the way the cinematography and everything, how I want this story to be told on a silver screen, so to speak, it's going to be very different and a little retro from what I think is missing right now out there in Hollywood movies.
Well, a good thing now is that we have outlets like Netflix, Hulu, where a lot of people and actors and directors are using that outlet instead of maybe going to the movies, because it seems like movies now, they last a weekend and then they're out.
It's unbelievable the amount of time and money that goes into producing one film, and then it might have like a 2-3 week shelf life out there, and then it's up to the management company or the marketing to keep the marketing going and trying to get as much revenue from it so you can pay off your investors or pay off the company that financed the project. Yeah, it's sad in a way, but it's a very fast moving market. Anything out there in media, film, and with music also. People don't realize how much time goes into working and writing quality music or producing quality stories in film.
Well, now we're pretty much in an ADD nation where everybody has a 30-second, like, all right, on to the next thing, 30 more seconds. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, with the cost of albums, going back to the music genre, I was saying for years already, go back to the whole, what it was like in the 50s where you did a single and maybe you had a B-side. You released two songs at a time. Because, albums back in the day, to produce them were hundreds of thousands of dollars, including production, producer fees and everything. So, to cut the cost, because obviously unit sales and, a little piracy and all that stuff going on, you got to put out a product there for a lot less now. But home recording technology has really made that very affordable for the everyday musician. So if you put your time into it, you can home record, and everybody does it nowadays. But what's lacking is the quality producer that's behind the artist. I don't care what artist you are. I mean, there's some great artists / producers that are out there over the years, but having a set of 3-4 guys that write great music, you don't realize when you get a quality producer that's the right fit for you, they take it to a whole nother level.
Yeah,
I mean,
George
everybody
Martin
from
and the Beatles.
Yes. Mutt Lange from Def Leppard and Bryan Adams and all them. So, yeah, the list goes on without going off on the whole music thing here right now. Yeah.
I think unfortunately, especially with YouTube and all these other outlets,
that's what the artists aren't getting nowadays. They're not getting the opportunity as easily. Yeah. The ones that really deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. And people settle for mediocrity
because there's plenty of people. There's everybody and their mother out there is an artist, is someone on YouTube, and It's all wonderful. It's great, but you know what? It's mental overload when you just go on the internet. You go on YouTube. There's just so much content. You have to fish around and look for the quality out there. So most of the time, I don't turn TV on. I don't listen to a lot of the major radio stations out there. I listen to what I believe in and what I find out there. And because otherwise, most of what I see on television nowadays and what comes to the silver screen, I'm not a big fan of.
No, neither am I. I do have a funny story about that is when Blair Witch became such a big hit back in 1999.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Anybody with a camcorder thought they were a filmmaker now.
Yep.
So all these movies were coming out. And it's like, no, this is not the Blair Witch. You can't replicate that. I mean, you can, but for the most part, no, it was like a one-time thing, and just come up with something original like you and I just spoke about. But you've done both. You've done music and books. Do you find the process of writing a song similar to writing a book?
It's a little different. It's definitely different. It's more lengthy, obviously, writing. But I mean, I've learned what writer's block is. It's something that you kind of experience the same thing when you're songwriting sometimes. But for me, it's all about inspiration. That's what drives me with storytelling. There's not a day that goes by where I get even if it's just a fraction, a little something small that I see out there, that's inspiration that, listen, I want to put that into the story because I think that's cool. I think that's great. And I know how to twist it and weave it into what I'm working on,
Do you only write when you're inspired, or do you sit down and say, I'm going to write from 10 to 12 today?
I try.
No matter what. So that's it.
I try to sit down. Mornings are my favorite time. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. That's when I feel, after I have a little caffeine in me, some coffee, I feel fresh. I
would need a whole pot for that.
I
whole
relish
pot of coffee.
Something about me with mornings. It could be with anything. It's not just for writing. It's just to get up. It's such a happy time of the day. It's a fresh start. And but there's days and weeks that go by where I don't write because life happens. Hectic, crazy things are going on. You just can't sit down and say I'm going to write. But usually, if I get to that point, I just start outlining things, and that's always the best way to further your story. Outline things that you want to write about, and once you have the outline figured out, for me, then it's about, okay, the character dialogue and scenes and different things that you're going to do. Yeah.
All right, so what's next in the creative world of Ron Kramer?
Well, like I said, I'm at the tail end of finishing up the second book. That's a sequel to Music Box. And the working title, some people might know it. I haven't really officially announced it, but it's called Return to the Fern Black Woods.
Is this a Nutmeg Chatter, Claws Chatter edition exclusive?
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. You heard it here first with Ron Kramer. Ron, it was great talking to you. Before we leave, though, I just want you to do a little plug. Where can people find you? And do you have any book signings coming up? Do you have any more CDs coming out?
Yeah. Actually, to learn more about me and to stay in touch, simple, musicboxstory.com. That's the official website, musicboxstory.com. You can go on there. You'll see any dates that I have coming up, the latest news, anything that's going to be coming down the pike. But I do have something coming in October for anyone that's here in Connecticut. It's going to be a book discussion / sign-in, and it's going to be over at the Morris Public Library, and that will be Saturday, October 19th, day after my birthday.
Happy birthday.
And it's Saturday, October 19th, and it's 1 p.m. sharp, so if you get there prior to 1, there'll be seats. I'm going to do a small little discussion, do some Q&A, and then I'll sit back and, I'll have some books on hand, some merchandise and some swag if anybody's interested. And we'd love to see, as many people that want to come out. It's a beautiful area. Morris, Connecticut is gorgeous, especially that time of year. Make a trip, come out to the Morris Public Library. You won't be disappointed. And again, that's Saturday, October 19th at 1 p.m. I'll be over there.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Ron.
Yep.
It's great having you on your show, and please come back.
I sure will.
When you come out with a new book or a new CD, whatever you're doing, I'd love to have you back on the show. You're welcome anytime here on Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. Well, that wraps up another episode of Nutmeg Chatter, the Claws Chatter edition. I want to thank my guest, musician, composer, and author Ron Kramer. Until next time, enjoy your day, everyone.